Life as a hotel manager is never just about reservations and room service. It's about keeping cool when everything else is a mess. I'm Kimberly, and at 32, I've seen my fair share of high-maintenance guests. But this guy, he was different. Decked out in a suit that screamed more dollars than cents and fiddling with his high-end phone, he seemed like just another rich guy until he had a complaint. His room wasn't cleaned right, some problem with the towels or whatever. He came down fuming, ready to unleash on anyone in sight. That's when I stepped in. "Sir, I understand you're upset. Let me handle this for you," I said, my voice calm, practiced. He looked taken aback, maybe because I didn't start apologizing left and right. I fixed his issue quick, got someone up there with fresh towels and an apology. When he came back to the lobby, his anger had cooled off. "You handle things well," he commented, a slight nod showing his approval. "Thanks. We aim to please," I shot back with a smile. That's when we really started talking. His name was Tom, and he wasn't just some businessman. He was a cryptocurrency investor, whatever that meant. Said he'd made a killing and was now just traveling around, seeing places. I nodded along, figuring it was just rich guy talk. The next day, after his city tour, he surprised me. Showed up at the front desk with a small bouquet of flowers. "For handling the chaos yesterday," he said, handing them over. I laughed, taking them. "You trying to make me blush or something?" "Maybe," he smirked, and it was charming enough. It became a thing. Every morning for the next few days, I'd find a new bouquet at the desk. Small, nothing fancy, but it was nice. Different. Then, just like that, he checked out. Suitcase in hand, cool as ever, but before he left, he asked for my number. I gave it to him, not thinking much of it. But then I missed him. Missed our little chats and his daily flowers. It was weird. I wasn't usually like this. A few days later, my phone rang, and it was him. "Hey, Kimberly. How about dinner? I owe you for the great service, and the flowers don't seem to be enough." I was surprised at how fast my heart raced. "Sure, Tom. Dinner sounds great." "Fantastic. I'll pick you up at 8? "Yeah, see you then," I managed, hanging up and staring at my phone. What was I getting into? I couldn't help but worry about what was next, yet I was looking forward to seeing him again. Was this just a simple dinner or something more? Either way, I was about to find out. Tom picked me up right at 8, like he said. He wasn't driving anything flashy, just a decent car that didn't scream "I'm loaded," but you could tell it wasn't cheap either. "So, where are we heading?" I asked as I buckled up, trying to sound casual. "There's this little Italian place I know. Quiet, cozy, good food. You'll like it," he said, pulling out of my apartment complex. The restaurant was indeed cozy, tucked away on a side street I'd passed a million times but never noticed. We got a table in the back corner, dimly lit and private. Perfect for a real conversation. As we settled in, Tom waved off the menu. "Let's just go with the chef's specials, trust me." "Look at you, all adventurous," I teased. He chuckled. "Life's too short for boring food, Kimberly." Dinner started with some light chatter, work talk, the weather, and the usual small talk. But as the plates started coming and the wine started flowing, things got deeper. "So, Kimberly, tell me something. What's it like, managing a whole hotel by yourself? Seems like a tough gig." He leaned in, genuinely curious. "It's hectic, chaotic. I mean, it's not just managing bookings and dealing with complaints. It's managing people, their needs, their problems. Sometimes it feels like I'm more of a therapist than a manager," I admitted, stirring my pasta. Tom nodded, taking a sip of his wine. "Sounds intense. Must be rewarding, though, seeing it all run smoothly because of you." "It is. But enough about me. What about you? Traveling around, investing in cryptos. Sounds like a gamble." He laughed, a deep, rich sound. It's a calculated risk, Kimberly. But yeah, it's a gamble. Made some, lost some, but mostly, I'm in the green. It's all about knowing when to hold on and when to let go. I raised an eyebrow. Sounds like you're talking about more than just money. Maybe I am, he said, his eyes holding mine for a moment longer than necessary. Then he shifted the conversation. What about family, Kimberly? You got anyone besides your sister? The question caught me off guard. Family was a touchy subject. It's just Sarah and me. Parents passed away in a car accident when I was 22. I had to grow up fast, take care of Sarah. She's all I've got. Tom's face softened. That's tough, taking on all that responsibility. You're strong, Kimberly. Not everyone could handle that. The conversation flowed naturally after that. He shared more about his family, strained relationships, high expectations, and why he preferred being on the road. It's simpler this way. Less drama, he said. Dinner ended with us laughing over a shared dessert. The earlier tension melted away. As he drove me home, the city lights blurred past, casting flickering shadows in the car. You know, I really enjoyed tonight, he said, pulling up in front of my apartment. It was real. Me too, Tom. It was nice to just talk, you know? No pretenses. He smiled, that slow, easy smile that seemed to light up his whole face. Exactly. So, how about we do this again? Say, Friday? I didn't even hesitate. Yeah, I'd like that. As I got out of the car, I realized I was smiling too. It felt good, easy. Like I might just be getting into something that could be real special. But I brushed the thought aside as I headed up to my apartment, the night still young and my heart a little lighter than before. Months zipped by like cars in the fast lane, and before I knew it, Tom and I were not just an item, we were engaged. Yeah, engaged. It sounds nuts, I know, but when you're floating on cloud 9, you don't really notice how fast you're moving. Tom moved into my apartment shortly after he popped the question. One night, while we were sprawled on the couch with Chinese takeout boxes between us, he brought up the wedding. Kimberly, I've been thinking, we should do something big for our wedding. You deserve a day as gorgeous as you are. I remember laughing, a piece of fried rice nearly flying out of my mouth. Big, huh? What are you thinking? Because my idea of big is having an extra scoop of ice cream on the sundae. He was serious though. No, really, Kim. I'm talking about a real celebration. Let's make it memorable. You put in, say, $50,000 for the wedding, and I'll handle the honeymoon. We're talking top-notch, the fanciest hotel in the world. And after that, I'll buy us a house. A place for us to start our life together. I know it sounds crazy, but I didn't even flinch. I was too much in love and too caught up in the fantasy. Alright, let's do it, I said, and just like that, I agreed to drain my savings for one day. One spectacular day. So, the planning started. I handed over my savings, and Tom took charge of the arrangements. He was all about making it lavish. It's going to be perfect, Kimberly. Just you wait. One afternoon, I introduced him to my sister, Sarah. We caught up with her at the local diner where she slings hash. Tom's charm didn't miss a beat. This is the famous sister I've heard so much about? Well, you're just as beautiful as Kimberly, he told her, flashing that $1,000,000 smile. Sarah blushed and fussed with her apron. Thanks. Kimberly's told me a lot about you, too. All good things, of course. I watched them, feeling a mix of pride and something else, nervousness? Jealousy? I couldn't put my finger on it. Sarah and I were close, real close, but seeing her with Tom, laughing at his jokes a little too heartily, a weird knot formed in my stomach. Hey, I'm going to grab us some coffees. Back in a jiff, Tom said, heading off to the counter, leaving Sarah and me at the booth. You like him, huh? Sarah nudged me, her voice low. I do. It's all happening fast, but it feels right, I admitted, trying to convince myself as much as her. The rest of our visit was light, but Tom's words about the wedding and his compliment to Sarah kept replaying in my mind. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a blur of color swatches, cake tastings, and endless lists. Tom had thrown himself into the plans with an enthusiasm that was both adorable and, frankly, a bit alarming. But as the big day crept closer, my excitement was tinged with nerves, not about marrying Tom, but about everything going off without a hitch. One sunny afternoon, I found myself in the bridal boutique, standing on a pedestal surrounded by mirrors, the shop assistant fluffing the train of a gown I was trying on. It was beautiful, sure, but did it feel like the one? I wasn't certain. "You look stunning, Kim. That has to be the dress." Linda, my ever-enthusiastic best friend, gushed from her seat in the corner of the fitting room. I turned this way and that, examining the lace detailing. "I don't know. Maybe it's too much? I don't want to look like a cupcake." Just then, laughter echoed from the next booth over. Familiar laughter. I peeked around the curtain, and there was Sarah, stepping onto a pedestal in a bridal gown herself. She looked like a bride. "Sarah? What in the world are you doing in a wedding dress?" I stammered, my voice echoing my confusion and surprise. She whirled around, her eyes wide as she spotted me. "Oh, Kim, it's not what it looks like. I was just trying it on for fun. You know, seeing what it feels like." "For fun?" I repeated, my brain trying to make sense of the scene. "Here? Now?" "Yeah, you know, just a bit of pretend." "I mean, when else am I going to wear something like this?" She laughed, but it was strained, and she avoided my eyes. We left the boutique with my dress still undecided, and the image of Sarah in that gown haunted me all the way home. At dinner, Tom noticed my quiet mood. "Something on your mind, babe?" he asked, passing me the salt. I shook my head, poking at my food. "It's nothing. Just wedding jitters, I guess." Later that night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Sarah trying on that wedding dress for fun didn't sit right with me. It felt off, like a puzzle piece that doesn't quite fit no matter how you turn it. But what was I supposed to do? Accuse my sister of something based on a hunch? The next day, I dropped by the diner to see Sarah. She was wiping down tables, her back to me as I approached. "Hey, sis." I greeted her, my voice casual. She turned, a smile instantly lighting up her face. "Kim, what brings you here? More wedding planning chaos?" "Something like that," I said, leaning on the counter. "Actually, I wanted to ask you about yesterday. The whole trying on a wedding dress thing. It was really just for fun?" Sarah's smile faltered, just for a second, before she recovered. "Yeah, of course. What else would it be?" I studied her face, looking for the little sister I knew so well. "Just checking. You'd tell me if there was more to it, right?" "Of course," she replied quickly, too quickly. "Don't worry about me, Kim. I'm just happy for you. Really." As I walked out of the diner, the unease settled deeper in my chest. Something was going on, I could feel it. But digging for truths that might shake everything up right before my wedding seemed like a gamble. Was I ready to roll those dice? Not yet, I decided. Not yet. It was just another hectic morning, Tom rushing out as usual for his meetings, but today he left something behind, his phone. It was buzzing nonstop on the kitchen table, lighting up with notification after notification. Curiosity gnawed at me. It was like the universe itself was prompting me to take a peek. Thank goodness there was no password, odd for someone so immersed in the tech world, but Tom always said he had nothing to hide. I picked up the phone, and the screen lit up with a message from a number not saved but all too familiar. "Can't wait to see you later. Yesterday was amazing," read the last message sent late last night. And there was a reply from Tom, "Me too. I hate hiding like this, but soon we won't have to." My hands trembled. This wasn't happening. There must be some explanation. I scrolled through their earlier messages, each one like a punch in the gut. The affectionate nicknames, the plans, the inside jokes, and then I saw a selfie of him. Him with my sister, Sarah, laughing at some cafe I'd been to 100 times, with both of them. My heart sank as I scrolled through messages of them plotting behind my back. Sarah, my own sister, was pregnant with his child. They were planning to kick me out of my own wedding, and she was going to take my place at the altar. Their words cut deep. They mocked me, called me a fool, a naive cash cow, laughing at how they'd use my money to fund their wedding. Betrayal twisted in my gut like a knife. After everything I did for Sarah, after our parents died, this was how she repaid me? Anger boiled inside, but cold calculation took over. Revenge sparked in my mind, clear and sharp. But I needed to play it cool, keep the upper hand. I wiped the tears from my face, took a few deep breaths, and steeled myself. When Tom walked back in an hour later, I was ready, phone in hand, smile plastered on my face. "Oh, you forgot this," I said, holding out his phone as if it was just another forgetful morning. Tom looked relieved as he took his phone. "Thanks, babe. Thought I'd lost it for good." "You didn't look through it, did you?" He tried to joke, a nervous edge to his laugh. "Why would I? Trust is key, right?" I kept my voice light, betraying nothing of the storm raging inside me. "Right, trust," Tom echoed, a flicker of something passing through his eyes. "Guilt, maybe?" He kissed me on the forehead, a gesture meant to reassure. "I'll see you tonight. Love you." I forced a smile, the words tasting bitter. "Love you too." As soon as the door shut behind him, my act crumbled. Alone, I let the facade fall away, but not the resolve. They thought they could play me for a fool, use me, and toss me aside? No. I was going to turn their deceit back on them. They wouldn't know what hit them until it was too late. The wedding day dawned bright and clear, the kind of day you picture in a fairy tale. Only, I knew today's tale was more grim than charming. As I stood there beside Tom, dressed in my immaculate wedding gown, every guest in the venue whispered about how perfect we looked together. Little did they know the drama that was about to unfold. Just as we were about to exchange vows, a commotion at the back caught everyone's attention. It was Sarah, my sister, in a wedding dress, breathless as if she'd run the whole way. She didn't even pause as she pushed past the guests, straight up to us. "Sorry I'm late, but I couldn't let you do this without telling you the truth. I deserve to be here more than she does," Sarah announced, glaring at me before turning to Tom with a desperate kind of triumph in her eyes. "Tell them, Tom. Tell them about us and our baby." Tom chuckled, a sound that echoed mockingly in the hushed venue. He looked at me, his smirk cruel. "Thanks, Kimberly, for putting together such a gorgeous wedding. It's everything we wanted." The guests gasped, their murmurs turning into a loud buzz of disbelief. I kept my smile, practiced and serene, as I stepped back. "Oh, I don't mind being a guest at this spectacle." Tom and Sarah exchanged confused glances, clearly not expecting my calm demeanor. Their moment of victory was short-lived, however, as another guest made her dramatic entrance. An older woman, furious, her eyes zeroing in on Tom. "I hope you're enjoying your wedding, you lying cheat," she yelled as she marched up the aisle. Tom's face turned a shade paler, his eyes wide with shock. "Melissa, what are you doing here?" "I'm his wife, that's what," Melissa declared, facing the crowd who was now on their feet, their shock palpable. "And the mother of his daughter, who he hasn't supported in months." Sarah stumbled backward, her face ashen, her dream wedding turning into a nightmare. She looked at me, then at Tom, her expression crumpling. I stepped forward, my voice loud and clear for everyone to hear. "I hired a private detective when I first got suspicious. Turns out, our dear groom here isn't just a cheater, he's a con artist. His investments? All failures. His debts? Astronomical. And yes, he's very much married, with a child he's neglected." The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by Melissa's sobs and Sarah's quiet whimpers. Tom tried to speak, tried to explain, but the looks of disgust from the guests and the utter betrayal in Sarah's eyes left him stuttering into silence. I turned to address everyone, my voice steady despite the chaos. I loved him, and I trusted him, like a fool. But today, I'm reclaiming my life. This wedding, this farce, is his making. Let him face the consequences. After that, chaos erupted fully. Melissa was demanding answers, guests were shouting questions, and Sarah was crying, realizing too late the depth of Tom's deceit. The wreckage of the wedding day was bad enough, but the surprises weren't over yet. Right after Melissa, the jilted wife, made her entrance and aired out all of Tom's dirty laundry, another pair stormed in, Tom's own parents, who looked like they'd been through a hurricane of disappointment. The place fell silent as Tom's father took the stage, his voice booming and filled with a bitter anger that echoed off the walls. "I've just learned about the despicable acts my son has committed," he bellowed, every word dripping with disdain. "Not only has he deceived Kimberly here, trying to humiliate her in front of us all, but he's also been hiding his marriage to a wealthy woman, Melissa, whom he left stranded." Tom tried to speak, his voice barely a whisper compared to the thunderous accusations of his father. "Dad, Silence. His father cut him off. "You've shamed us enough. Your mother and I can't believe the son we raised could do such things." His look of disappointment was piercing, even to me. His mother, a stern woman who had until then been silently observing the chaos, finally spoke up, her voice sharp and cold. "We are ashamed of you, Tom. And as of today, you are no longer part of our family or our will. You've shown your true colors, and we want no part in this deceit." The room spun with murmurs and whispers, everyone piecing together the spectacle. Meanwhile, Tom looked like he was shrinking, his face pale, his usual charm nowhere in sight. The next day I met with a lawyer and filed a lawsuit against him for the $50,000 I had invested in what was supposed to be our wedding. The court didn't take long to see through his lies, especially with all the evidence stacked against him, and they ruled in my favor. Tom was ordered to pay back every penny. Melissa wasn't about to let him off easy either. She filed her own lawsuit, demanding not just the return of her investments, but alimony for their daughter, whom Tom had barely acknowledged. The last I heard, Melissa was on a warpath to ensure Tom paid for every bit of distress and abandonment. Seeing Tom brought down by his own actions, forced to face up to the consequences, gave me a bitter kind of satisfaction. I was out $50,000, but getting it back felt like reclaiming my dignity and some semblance of control over my life. Life after the chaos of what was supposed to be my wedding day settled into a quiet routine much faster than I expected. My ex-fiance, Tom, left town right after the disastrous ceremony and the legal aftermath, leaving behind a trail of broken promises and one very pregnant, very alone sister, Sarah. The days turned into weeks, and as I threw myself into hobbies and meeting up with friends like Linda, I found a kind of solace that had been missing in the whirlwind of my engagement to Tom. Pottery classes, long evening walks, and Friday nights out helped stitch back some of the normalcy into my life. One chilly afternoon, while I was at the park, sketching the bare trees against the winter sky, my phone buzzed. It was Sarah. She had tried reaching out a few times since everything went down, but I wasn't ready to hear her out. This time was no different, but I answered anyway, more out of a reflex than desire. "Kimberly, can we talk?" Sarah's voice was soft, almost a whisper, and I could hear the strain behind it. "I'm listening," I said, keeping my tone neutral, my fingers tightening around my sketchpad. I know I messed up. More than messed up. I'm sorry doesn't even cover it, but I am. I'm sorry, Kimberly. And I need help," she admitted, her voice cracking with emotion. "You're not the first to go through this, and you won't be the last," I replied, the coldness in my own voice surprising even me. "You'll figure it out, Sarah. You have to." There was a pause, heavy and filled with things unsaid, things that might never be repaired. "If that's how you feel, I understand. I hope one day you can forgive me," she finally said. As I picked up my sketchpad and focused back on the stark lines of the winter trees, I realized that moving on wasn't just about filling my days with activities. It was also about accepting the hard truths of betrayal and learning to trust my judgment again. Life went on, with coffee dates with Linda, where we talked about everything except Tom and Sarah, pottery classes where my hands molded new creations, symbolizing a new start, and quiet evenings spent in the peace of my own company. Through it all, I rebuilt a life that was solely mine, no longer overshadowed by the deceit of those I loved.